In the village of Midsomer Parva, ex-MI6 agents are being murdered. Can Barnaby and Jones come in from the cold to solve the case? We're talking sexy spies.
The history of espionage.
And when Barnaby goes power mad in this episode of
Welcome to Midsomer.
Hello, and welcome to Midsomer, the podcast where we dissect all the mysteries, the murders, and the many weird things about the long-running hit TV show, Midsomer Murders. I'm your host, Eric Buscher. With me, as always, is my co-host, Eileen Becker. Hey, Eileen.
Hey, Eric. Today we are talking about Secrets and Spies, the third episode of the 12th series. It originally aired July 7th, 2009. It was directed by Rennie Rye and written by Michael Aitkins. Let's get our martinis shaken, not stirred.
Listeners, I hope you all are doing well. We were recording this in the midst of winter. If I sound a little scratchy, that is because I am recovering from a chest cold. We always seem to be sick when we're recording this show. Spoiler warning, we will be discussing the events of this episode, including the identity of the murderer. So if you have not watched it yet and don't want to know who done it, pause this and go watch it. We will still be here when you get back.
So what can I do for you, Brenda?
Allenby House. The company, in its wisdom, has decreed that it should be a safe house.
Safe house? Run by Malcolm friends. What sort of drugs are they on?
Relatively safe house, then. A stopover for people on sensitive government business. Good food, comfy beds, and the odd... whatever they need to keep them happy and cooperative.
I do not approve.
Your approval is not required. But your expertise could be. I was hoping you might pay an informal courtesy call and check that everything is tickety-boo at the funny farm.
Why can't you do that?
Because I am the left hand that doesn't let the right hand know what it's doing.
Oh, the great game.
We open in the past, and we know it's the past because it's in black and white. In an East Berlin graveyard in 1982, a man helps a woman and a young boy go under the Berlin Wall through a secret tunnel. Once they cross over to the west, a traitor on that side alerts soldiers on the east, who swarm and beat the man guarding the tunnel. In the glorious Technicolor present, MI6 secret agent middle manager Glenn Jarvis arrives at Allenby House, which is run by the Fraser family. Patriarch Sir Malcolm is an ex-spy master obsessed with planning his own funeral. His son Nicky and daughter-in-law Jenny are also former spies, and they all help maintain Allenby as a government safehouse. Jarvis is there to make sure the place is secure for a high-level guest, former spy-turned-arms dealer Jeffrey Larkin. Sir Malcolm is not thrilled. Meanwhile, in the nearby village of Midsomer Parva, DCI Tom Barnaby investigates a break-in at the local museum, even though nothing seems to have been taken. His regular wingman D.I. Jones is over at the cricket field, practicing for an upcoming match against Allenby House. The locals team captain, Jimmy Wells, is violently competitive with Allenby captain Nicky and demands a new umpire since the regular one is Sir Malcolm. Seems fair. Jones knows just who to ask. Barnaby. And he's not super excited to take on the job, but he would rather be the umpire than do weekend chores. At the office, Barnaby receives a coded message that sends him to visit an old friend, Brenda Packard. Packard is a former higher-up at MI6, and as it turns out, Barnaby at one point worked for them. She wants him to go check out the security at Allenby House to make sure nothing happens to Larkin. Barnaby does as he is asked, but Jarvis dismisses him. Did no one tell him that Barnaby was coming? Larkin seems to take great joy in prodding Malcolm and threatens him with a file from the East Berlin days about something called Wolfman. That night, Jenny sneaks out and meets someone in the barn for some sexy time while her husband watches on a security camera. The next day, local shepherd and handyman Seth Comfort finds one of his sheep dead with its throat slit. He claims it's the work of the Beast of Midsomer, which comes in times of badness. Because he's staying at Allenby House, Larkin is eligible to join the team for the game, a fact that pisses off Wells. Jarvis demands extra men at the match to keep Larkin safe, but Barnaby declines. He gets into his role as umpire, throwing his weight around and being just a colossal jerk. However, he doesn't bother to call the final play, which gives Allenby and Larkin the win. Everyone seems to take it really well. That night at the victory party at Allenby, Larkin smokes outside when he hears a strange growling from the bushes. The next day, his body is found on the cricket field, his throat slashed, just like the sheep's. With Comfort telling the media it was the Beast, Coroner Bullock doesn't have much of a better explanation. The claws that killed Larkin were bigger than a lion's, and he has no idea what animal or weapon could do that. Barnaby tries to interrogate the people at the house, but he's immediately shut down by Jarvis and Brenda, citing the Official Secrets Act. Getting pissy, he orders a roadblock around the house. Then he tries to talk to Wells, who was Fraser's chauffeur in Berlin, but gets nothing. He convinces Comfort to steal CCTV footage from Allenby House, so they end up watching the footage of Jenny's assignation, but they can't see who she hooked up with. Barnaby decides he's had enough and hands in his resignation to the chief constable. Nikki and Jenny get into a very public argument, and he returns home to pass out drunk on the bed after arranging a mysterious meeting. Later, Jenny takes him food as an apology, but he's gone missing. They find him outside murdered, his throat slashed, like Larkin's. Quick tourist info, this is our second time in Midsomer Parva, which appeared in The Electric Vendetta, Murder on St. Mally's Day, The Straw Woman, Shot at Dawn, and The Sword of Guillaume, as well as this episode. There's lots to see in Parva. There's Devington, the elite private school that holds lots of secrets. They have an annual Straw Woman festival in which they burn a giant straw woman, and a few people, in effigy. You can visit the local manor house where a pornographer once lived. They also have a nice hospice, a World War I memorial, the obligatory old church, a top-notch cricket field, and of course, Allenby House. It's a great place to murder people. I mean, visit. It's a great place to visit.
Yeah, sure. Allenby House was actually played by Dorney Court, which was also used in 4 other Midsomer episodes. If it looks familiar, there is a reason. It can also be on TV in Bridgerton, Endeavour, Inspector Morse, and both Poirot and Miss Marple series, and in the films A Man for All Seasons, Elizabeth the Golden Age, The Other Boleyn Girl, Pride and Prejudice, and Zombies, and Bohemian Rhapsody, among many others. And yes, you can get married there.
Murdered there?
Married.
Murdered?
Married. Murdered.
Yeah. Let's just start with an overall picture on this episode. I loved this episode. I find it has that, where Midsomer often tries to balance humor and murder. I think they hit the balance just right.
I do too. I think it's, the clues are there. There's nothing that comes out of left field on it. The writing is sharp. It's funny. The characters are good. It's fun, but there's some serious undertones to it. It's very well balanced.
Yeah. I like that it's, a slow build.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the first murder till almost half an hour in.
Yeah. And that works with this one, yeah.
They were smart to set up all the espionage, Allenby House stuff, all the kind of backstabbing. And there's a lot of kind of interlacing of that who do you trust? Who do you, who's a good spy? Who's a traitor? That's kind of inherent in all spy stories are inherently about someone's going to be a traitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought this one just worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it also had fantastic lines.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that I noted, of course, was the vicar is a complete fapper. I know what vicar is a complete means. I'm not quite sure what fapper means, but I get the drift. I like the exchange. Is it illegal to strange nasty little weasels? I think it's encouraged. And of course, the kind of want to put this one on a t-shirt just to see what people say, but let us insert some ginger into the appropriate orifices and see if we can make the horses dance.
And Jones's reaction is what we all think. What? I love pretty much everything that Brenda says. I think her lines are so fantastic and delivered with such relish.
Yes. She's a great character. We'll get into her in just a few minutes. Let's talk a little bit about what this episode is really all about. And it is about power and control.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's get the big one out of the way. Barnaby is a control freak.
You think?
100%. And if it wasn't apparent before, this episode just kind of nails it down. His behavior at the cricket match was he even says, I have the power of God. I'm like, you're just umping a game, man.
He's a small god in a small little universe, and he's enjoying it.
And I like how he kind of takes it out on Jones, this petty behavior of Jones, Like, he didn't accept the job. Like, he wasn't forced to do the job. He just didn't want to do all the household chores that Joyce wanted him to do. So he just says, okay, fine, I'll be an umpire. And then he's bitter about it and nasty to Jones, even though he made the choice.
Even the way he strings along Stevens with her promotion is kind of a little power-hungry control, massively a-hole boss behavior.
Yeah, it was a little daddy. It was like little like I'm daddy.
Yeah,
and you're the kids. I'm like that's not how that works.
Yeah.
But then you get to the whole thing where about the investigation where he is basically shut down because of the Official Secrets Act and not allowed to investigate a murder. And what he does is he just like, well, I'm going to throw my weight around it and like insert my power in where I can. I'm going to do this roadblock which will solve nothing, but I'm going to do it. And, when he gets called on it, he quits.
Yeah. And he bumps up against somebody who's as much of a control freak as he is, and Glenn Jarvis, who's also this petty little god in his petty little universe. And I'll get into him more, yeah.
But also Brenda, who does have real power.
Yeah.
Kind of wonder if she's like an XM.
Well, I will talk about her as M. I do want to mention that.
He cannot have complete control over this investigation, so he quits. Which I thought was interesting, because he just, like, he shows that he has to be in kind of, I was shocked that he quit, because it's like, you must have several other multiple murders going on at the same time. You're just going to walk away?
Yeah, I mean, have you been to Badger's Drift lately?
This just really crystallized how, behind the sort of the gentlemanly detective of like, I exert my authority. It's like, he's like thumb on the scale, tamp down. I will throw my power around as I see fit. No one's going to stop me.
Well, you kind of always knew that because of the way he tends to enter buildings without, search warrants.
But that's just it. It's like they always sort of play these things off as like little quirks, as opposed to guys who just refuse to respect, like, that there's limits to what they cannot do.
Yeah.
Think about how we like they throw, like, both Barnabys throw their weight on the DIs and like you're going to pay for these drinks. Yeah. You're going to do this. You're going to have this the way I want it to do. It's like, it's very beyond patronizing, to the point of micromanagement and abuse of power.
Speaking of abuse of power, we also have Malcolm and Nikki and their control of Jenny.
Yep.
And it seems to have been going on for like decades.
Yep. Very manipulative, and sort of her acting, her multiple affairs, assignations, or her longtime affair. It's just her way of kind of reasserting her own authority and autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you also have Larkin trying to control Malcolm.
Yeah.
And Jarvis trying to control everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally we have love and money and revenge. And here it's almost exclusively about power. And even to the point where Jenny uses her power of withholding sex over Nikki as well.
Yes. It's a very complicated portrayal. I think Alice Krige does wonderful in this role.
She's an amazing actress, and we will discuss that later. But let's talk cricket, because I have to say, I did all that research on cricket for Dead Man's 11. I still had no clue what was going on on the cricket pitch.
All I saw was Barnaby just like seemingly determining things at random.
Yeah.
Like he complains, and then he realizes he has control over. There's a large group of men that he has control over, and is just like, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that, like, cricket as the gentleman's game, right? But it's just like any sport that involves lots of dudes. It gets aggressive. It gets angry.
A hockey game breaks out. Oh wait, no, a fist fight breaks out.
Well, Wells like throws a ball at Jones' head.
Yeah.
That's his own teammate. He's like, this is a grenade. I'm like, you're insane. But it was a really, it was a strong comedy moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they coupled it with the weirdest music for that montage. It was so it seemed more like 80s American teen comedy montage music than it did like a British murder mystery montage. I just was like, I liked it. I thought it was so abnormal.
Yeah. What's funny is that it can be passed off as like, why are they spending so much time on this? And I think it would work, it probably works a lot better if you understand cricket, but it sets up the dynamic between everybody there, between Wells and Larkin and Nikki and Jones and and of course Barnaby.
Yeah.
And it plays out the rest of the show. Yeah.
And it kind of, it's a thing that they use later on when they bring Jones back later on in the series. He's playing cricket.
Yep. What's funny is Peter Davison is actually a very good cricket player. We'll talk about this a little bit more. So he said it was hard for him to play badly.
I want to hit on the East Berlin section real fast.
Okay.
It was a choice to do black and white, which is not something they normally do.
They have done it in some of the sections where they delve into the past with opening scenes.
Not always.
Not always, but they did it with Send in the Clowns, where they start off in black and white and then went into color, but also in the one with Orlando Bloom.
No, but that's not in black and white.
It starts off in black and white.
Are you sure? Because I feel fairly confident that was in color.
Okay.
Quick editor's note, Judgment Night starts in color. I just thought it was interesting. I also think it was kind of a call out to like The Spy That Came In From the Cold.
Yeah.
The original Richard Burton.
The original Richard Burton, yeah. Not the only Le Carré reference in this episode.
No. But I had one question.
Mm-hmm.
So the woman walked past the guardhouse, who was clearly staring at something with those binoculars. Why were they doing this in broad daylight? This seemed like a night thing.
It did seem like a night thing, but I guess maybe going to the cemetery at night would have been more suspicious. Who knows?
Also, who put a wall right in the middle of a cemetery?
Well, the East Germans.
Clearly wasn't a deep thing.
People who build walls not always do it for the best of intentions, shall we say.
Good walls make bad neighbors.
Yeah.
All right. Since this episode deals with spies and espionage, Eileen, why don't you take us through the history of spycraft?
All right. One who knows the enemy and knows himself will not be endangered in 100 engagement. Those words of advice are attributed to Sun Tzu in his 5th century BCE classic, The Art of War. His description of spycraft is still very much the way things are today, except now we have computers and Serbian bot farms. It has always involved agents, double agents, and propaganda, people to get secret information on enemy strength and movements, as well as disinformation campaigns that affect military and civilian morale. Spies were used in ancient Egypt, India, Greece, the Roman Empire, and in the biblical account of the Hebrew conquest of Jericho, the second oldest profession indeed. Spycraft developed throughout Europe, Asia, and Mesoamerica, mainly in connection with military intelligence. While spies were often well-trained and organized, Francis Walsingham took things to a new level in the 16th century. There were so many plots against Queen Elizabeth I of England that techniques had to be more sophisticated. Deciphering letters was of huge importance, and Walsingham tricked Mary, Queen of Scots, into revealing a plan to place her on the throne. Walsingham's spy networks were larger than any that had come before, reaching as far as Constantinople. By the 18th century, armies were much larger, as were foreign ministries. While foreign ministries ostensibly operated in the open in gathering intelligence, large and well-paid spy networks also were necessary. During the American Revolution, General George Washington developed a very successful spy ring that became crucial to the outcome of the war, earning Washington the unofficial title as America's first spy master. Napoleon also used extensive spy networks, especially in Russia, though maybe a good weatherman would have been more useful. The Great Game was the 19th century equivalent to the 20th century's Cold War. British colonial India was at its height and the British Empire was expanding, while the countries that would eventually make up the republics of the Soviet Union were brought into the Russian Empire. Britain and Russia developed new techniques and sophisticated permanent intelligence networks to keep tabs on what the other was doing. In the U.S., Alan Pinkerton, creator of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, was the head of the Union Intelligence Service during the first 2 years of the Civil War, after thwarting an assassination attempt in Baltimore of President-elect Lincoln on his way to his inauguration. The armies also had spies and scouts who reported back to their commanders. While scouts wore uniforms and were treated as enemy soldiers if caught, spies were not in uniform and could be shot or hanged. The Confederates also had a network of spies centered in Alexandria, Virginia, just across the river from Washington, D.C. In the UK, the Directorate of Military Intelligence was established in 1873 as a department of the British War Office. In 1964, it was absorbed into the Defense Intelligence Staff, but its remaining divisions are still well known. MI5 is the Domestic Counter-Espionage Section and deals with the civilian population, while MI6 is the Foreign Intelligence Division. In France, the Dreyfus Affair of 1894 put the subject of espionage on the front pages of newspapers, and spy novels such as The Prisoner of Zenda and The Scarlet Pimpernel started to become popular. In the First World War, the British had great success recruiting Belgian and French spies who hated the occupying Germans, while the Germans could only recruit a much smaller number of spies. In 1917, the Zimmermann telegram was intercepted and decoded by British intelligence. This telegram was sent by the German Foreign Office to the German ambassador to Mexico, proposing an alliance between Germany and Mexico if the U.S. entered the war, and that Germany would help Mexico reclaim Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico in return. This spurred the entry of the U.S. into the war. The Soviet GRU was established in 1918 and exists to this day. The world became and continues to be overrun by an alphabet soup of intelligence agencies that deal with domestic or foreign intelligence, some military and some civilian. It's all too complicated to break them all down here, but in the U.S., the OSS transitioned after World War II into the CIA and the NIR. The NSA was established in 1952. Domestic intelligence in the U.S. is under the purview of the FBI, founded in 1908, and there are 22 intelligence agencies in the U.S. Code-breaking by the Allies was a major part of their victory over the Axis powers in World War II, as exemplified by the cracking of the various German Enigma machines by the Poles, the French, the British, and the U.S. Nazi espionage techniques were often ineffective. Cold War espionage is still being studied, as many records have only recently been declassified. The major players were the US's CIA, the UK's MI6, and the Soviet Union's KGB. The East German Stasi was another major player, though it operated mainly internally. Oleg Gordievsky was the most important KGB double agent, providing important information to Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan until he was spotted by Aldrich Ames, a Soviet agent who worked for the CIA. His insights into Kremlin thinking and weaknesses helped end the Cold War. In the 21st century, counterterrorism is one of the most important elements of espionage, though there have been some notable failures. Technologically, espionage has moved from monitoring mail to intercepting telegrams, to tapping phones, to cyber espionage and spy satellites. Propaganda is still a major part of counterintelligence, and possibly one of the most effective.
What's interesting is that a lot of the history of spycraft, you tend to only really ever know about it when it goes bad or there's traitors, like, I think the very famous Kim Philby case.
Yeah.
And there was another very huge one that
Robert Walker in the U.S.
Robert Walker. I think there was and there's another one. The history of spycraft tends to be full of Aldrich Ames.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that's interesting is that unless there's a massive failure or something gets exposed, you don't really know what the spies are doing and all the information that they are taking in, which is why you can't really say if something worked or not, because...
Well, that's the point of a great spy. you're undetected.
Yeah. Which I thought was funny because one of the things that Glenn Jarvis comes into town driving this bright red sports car, not subtle, not undercover, and he's like, we have to be very hush-hush about everything, and he's driving a bright red sports car. I think that was kind of a reference to the sports car that James Bond drives in all the movies. This is not subtlety here.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. James Bond is a terrible spy.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows his name.
Yeah. He says it right off. Bond. James Bond.
Oh, the legendary James Bond. I was like, nobody should know him.
Yeah.
Especially since most of the people he does tell his name to end up dead.
Or sleeping with him and then getting killed.
The episode had a lot of call-outs to Le Carré, who is, the master of the British espionage novel. As you said, the black and white intro felt like a homage to The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Plus the quite obvious scene of Joyce reading Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Yeah, yeah. There are also references to The Great Game, which is Kipling really popularized that term for that time between the UK, the United Kingdom, and Russia, or the British Empire and Russia, through his novel Kim. It's not mentioned by title, but in the episode, but it was a very influential spy novel. Yep. So this is filmed obviously after Judi Dench started her tenure as M in the James Bond films, and I get a very Judi Dench's M vibe from Brenda Packard in this. Yeah.
We've been dancing around all the cast. This is such a great cast. We got to do these cast highlights, Eileen.
Yeah.
We're going to kick things off with Peter Davison, who played crybaby drunk Nicky Fraser. He is, of course, a prolific and highly recognizable actor whose big breakthrough came in the 1978 series of All Creatures, Great and Small. Now, in 1981, he became the fifth Doctor Who, which is probably the role he's probably most associated with. He was the youngest actor to ever play the role until Matt Smith took over in 2009. Now, he left the series after 3 years, but he continues to be associated with it and has returned to the role for various special productions on TV, audio, and the like. He is also the father-in-law of 10th Doctor David Tennant, so he does keep it in the family. Beyond that, he is in so much British TV, film, and theater. His credits are way too numerous to list. I will just say that most recently he was in the series The Gold, which received a lot of critical acclaim.
I had the pleasure of meeting him at the Lexington Comic Convention way back when, where they were doing a Doctor Who focus on it, and I got to meet 3 of the doctors, and he was one of them. So that was really special. Great guy.
Should have reached out to him and see if we got him on this episode.
Peter, if you're listening, this was before we were doing the show, the podcast. But if you're out there and you're listening, we love you. We'd love to have you on.
He's not listening. Clive Russell was towering Beast superfan Seth Comfort. He was born in 1945, but didn't really start acting until 1980 when he appeared in the play Accidental Death of an Anarchist. He's had a long career and is probably most recognizable from Game of Thrones, where he played Brynden Tully, and Ripper Street, where he played Inspector Aberline. But hey, he's also in Sherlock Holmes, the Downey version, The Wolfman, and most recently, Murder They Hope. He stands at 6 feet 6 inches. I had to check that because he is huge in this episode.
And he's very funny. I think he's just so funny in this episode.
John Bowe was grenade-throwing cricket player Jimmy Wells. Bowe is a character actor who has appeared in a number of TV shows, including Lovejoy, Silent Witness, Emmerdale, Coronation Street, and The Hour. Now, he is probably most recognized as suspected killer George Marlowe in the first Prime Suspect series starring Helen Mirren, and he would reprise that role in the Prime Suspect TV film The Scent of Darkness. Now, in 2020, Bowe contracted COVID and almost died. Thankfully, he recovered, but this led him to join the controversial Reform UK party led by right-wing figure Nigel Farage in 2021 as a protest against the government's COVID restrictions. At the same time, he also announced he was retiring from acting, which is probably good because the blowback he was probably get from a lot of people in the UK would have been big.
Yeah.
Claudia Elmhurst played the horniest museum worker ever, Amanda Watson. Now, she's only had a few credits to her name, including Doctors, EastEnders, and Moses Jones. It looks like she's retired from acting at this point, and according to her LinkedIn page, she is currently training to be an integrative psychotherapist.
I thought she had great chemistry with Jones.
She did. They had great chemistry. It was just really funny and weird.
Yeah.
Lady, you're at work. Timothy Carlton was a character so important they didn't even give him a name. The Chief Constable. Now, Carlton is a character actor who appeared in Cold Comfort Farm, The Goodies, The Sweeney, Bergerac, The Professionals, Next of Kin, and Sherlock. Now, Carlton and his real-life wife, Wanda Ventham, played Sherlock's parents in several episodes of the Stephen Moffat Sherlock series. They got the gig because they are the real-life parents to Sherlock star Benedict Cumberbatch, which makes them the world's oldest Nepo babies. Jack Walker was the luckiest driver in the world, Harry Fowler. He only has a few credits, including Sherry, First Night, and Suspicion. Not sure what happened to him. I tried Googling him, but there are several other Jack Walkers in the acting game. Rosalind Drury played young Jenny. After this performance, she appeared in one short film and has since stopped acting and worked on a casting assistant for a while on shows like Father Brown. Now, this next one, Eileen, this one is a doozy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Tom Rook was young Nicky. Now, in 2004, well before this episode, a 23-year-old Rook appeared in the reality show There's Something About Miriam. Now, in the show, 6 men competed for the affections of 21-year-old Miriam Rivera. Rook won. But in the last episode after he won, he and the rest of the contestants learned that Miriam was transgender and had yet to undergo gender-affirming surgery. They had not been told the entirety of the filming.
Hmm.
In fact, apparently the producers did everything to they never used like she pronouns or anything like that in any communications, so they could never say that, oh, well, we never said she was she. And when, of course, they revealed this at the end of the series, Rook, on camera, graciously accepted the prize money and said he would go on a trip with Rivera. But when the camera stopped rolling, he rejected the prize and joined the other 5 contestants in a lawsuit to prevent the show from ever making it on air. In the lawsuit, they alleged conspiracy to commit sexual assault, defamation, breach of contract, and personal injury in the form of psychological and emotional damage, which feels a little much. They eventually settled out of court, and the show did premiere to a lot of criticism. Miriam went on to appear, I guess, in a year of Big Brother. Definitely one of those more infamous British reality shows.
Yeah.
Rook himself went on to appear in small roles in Atonement, Love Type D, and A Serial Killer's Guide to Life.
Hmm.
Marcus Missorley was uncredited, just listed as sort of Jenny's lover. I'm assuming the guy in the alley. He's done a lot of work in British shorts and videos, and most recently appeared in the sexy holiday comedy Christmas Party.
Ooh. We had quite a few return visitors in this episode, starting with Anna Massey, who was the constant gardening Brenda Packard. You probably remember her for her turn in the classic episode Written in Blood, where she probably scared you to death. Or you might know her from her over 100 roles in British film and television. She won a BAFTA for her performance in 1986's Hotel du Lac, and she appeared in Hitchcock's Frenzy and Michael Powell's classic Peeping Tom. She also appeared in The Machinist, The Importance of Being Earnest, and Angels and Insects. Her father was the Oscar-winning actor Raymond Massey, and she was married to the actor Jeremy Brett, best known as Sherlock Holmes. She passed away in 2011, 2 years after this episode aired. Benjamin Whitrow was funeral-obsessed Sir Malcolm Fraser. He also appeared in Tainted Fruit. He's a RADA grad who started on stage in 1959 and worked with Olivier for several years at the National Theatre. He appeared in Quadrophenia, Pride and Prejudice, Chicken Run, Damage, and The Saint. His final role was in The Darkest Hour before passing away in 2017. Clive Wood played opportunistic Geoffrey Larkin. He appeared in Blue Herrings and Wild Harvest. His first starring TV role was in 1982's A Kind of Loving, and he would go on to appear in Press Gang, London's Burning, The Bill, and Suffragette. He plays the pirate lord in the popular video game Sea of Thieves. Neil Stuke played Weasel Glenn Jarvis. We discussed him when we talked about Send in the Clowns. He's appeared in Sliding Doors as Defensive Bloke, Game On, The Virgin Queen, The Bill, Reggie Perrin, Silk, Jack Ryan, and This England. Stephanie Jacob played Alice the Lip Reader. We talked a little bit about her when we discussed Masterclass, and she also appeared in Last Year's Model. She's a character actress who most recently appeared in the Hulu adaptation of the best-selling novel Black Cake. Tim Treloar appeared as PC Reg. He's also appeared in Birds of Prey, The Fisher King, The Straw Woman, and Ghosts of Christmas Past. He is best known for taking over the role of the third Doctor Who for a series of audio adventures starting in 2015. So that makes him the second Doctor Who in this episode. And of course, Mayor of Midsomer, Chris Wilson, appeared uncredited as a police officer. Hey, Chris! Our village star this week is Alice Krieger, who played femme fatale Jenny Fraser. She was born and grew up in South Africa, where she attended Rhodes University with the original plan to be a psychologist. But after an acting class, she switched majors and eventually came to London to study at the Central School of Speech and Drama. Her debut was in the 1976 South African film Vergeet My Nie, or something like that, but she began working steadily in the UK immediately after. She appeared in the Oscar-winning film Chariots of Fire and won an Olivier Award for Most Promising Newcomer for Shaw's Arms and the Man. She's gone on to appear in Sleepwalkers, Deadwood, Skin, The OA, Thor, The Dark World, and the recent remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But probably her biggest claim to fame is that she played the Borg Queen in the film Star Trek First Contact. Probably the best of the Next Generation films, due in no small part to her great performance. She won the Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress and went on to reprise the role in the Star Trek series Voyager, Picard, and Lower Decks. The character is a fan favorite and is considered by many to be one of the greatest Star Trek villains of all time. Take that, Khan. Khan!
I was really hoping you'd lean back and really rip into that Khan.
Khan!
little okay.
Maybe not. The first time I saw her was in the movie Ghost Story.
Yeah.
Which I convinced my dad was only rated R because of it being scary, not knowing it had massive sex scenes in it, and convinced him that I can go see it because Fred Astaire was in it.
That was based off an early Peter Straub novel. Yeah. I saw that movie. It's great. The book is great. The movie was fine. She's a great actress. She does have. It's interesting is that she's probably known for probably more the Borg Queen, something where she wears a ton of makeup. Mm-hmm. Sleepwalkers is one of those cult films that it's based off a Stephen King story that is so bad it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But again, she has to wear a bunch of cat face makeup in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember her from Deadwood, and I've seen that series multiple times.
Oh, I find her very memorable. I loved her in Chariots of Fire, and she got to hang out with Ben Cross, which was
I mean, cool. She's a fantastic actress.
Oh, she really is. I find her very memorable,
and I thought she was great in this in this role where she's playing all kinds of things. Ingenue, sexually aggressive, whip smart, devious, angry. She gets to make a meal of this, and she does it well.
Yeah. She brings every aspect of the character of Jenny out in a way that works so well in this episode.
Mm-hmm. This episode does not work without her performance.
Mm-hmm.
And she nails it.
Yeah. I think overall this is a very strong cast on this episode.
A very strong cast.
Even the woman who does the lip reading for the video, when she says, "Is that a coffin?" Perfect.
One of the best jokes in the entire episode, because you totally forgot about the coffin for a while,
mm-hmm.
right? Totally forgot about that the coffin's in that room. And when she just says that line, you're like, that's such a perfect callback.
Yeah. And of course, it's Chekhov's coffin.
Yep. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to be back in just a moment with the second half of Secrets and Spies. And we're back. Let's hit the second half of Secrets and Spies.
Barnaby, Oh, hello, sir. Yes, I had heard. Oh, I see. And that would be, would it, with full control and no further interference from any other agencies? No, sir, that's fine. Thank you, sir. And goodbye. See you later.
Thank God for small murders.
Jarvis tries to get Barnaby to come back to Allenby House, but Barnaby isn't interested until he hears about the second murder. Then he's all in. Once the chief constable gives him total control over the investigation, he's back on the job. This time when he goes to Allenby House, everyone has to answer his questions. Jenny says there isn't any footage of the attack, but several DVDs are missing, and Nikki was the one responsible for the cameras. She also says it was Nikki in the hayloft with her, but we know that's a lie. Malcolm is visibly torn up by his son's death, but when asked about what happened in East Berlin to cause Malcolm to lose his position, he says it's not relevant. Barnaby goes to Brenda for that info, who tells him that Malcolm and his family headed up a team that was getting people out of the country. However, one of them turned traitor, causing the collapse of the team and Malcolm's career. Meanwhile, Jones returns to the museum where he and museum worker Amanda Watson find evidence that some animal bones were stolen from a specimen bag. Jones smells the lovely aroma of sheep poo on the bag, so he goes to Comfort's sheep pens and finds a saber-toothed cat skull, which matches the wounds on the bodies. Barnaby and Jones chase Comfort down while he tries to escape on a slow-moving tractor. Now, Comfort says he's being framed and turns over a few more DVDs which shows the exchange about Wolfman. So Barnaby and Jones talk to Wells, who was the man we saw getting beaten in the opening. He was a mechanics whiz who helped the Frasers get people out in clever ways. But when he was arrested, he was tortured into revealing the operation and then was sent to an East German prison for 3 years. He claims to not know who the traitor was who turned him in. Barnaby and Jones go to the house to find Malcolm, but he's missing. Barnaby works out that he has been transported out of the house in his own coffin. They aren't sure where they are taking Malcolm until Jones remembers that he saw Jenny making a signal on Wells's car that shows he was the one in the hayloft. They go back to Wells, who realizes his hearse is missing, and they all head to the crematorium. They manage to save Malcolm just in the nick of time, and then we get the reveal. So Jenny was the woman at the top of the episode. She was in love with Wells, but when he was turned in by Nikki, who was the traitor, they told her Jimmy was dead. She ended up marrying Nikki even though she didn't love him, and in her grief she began a series of sexual indiscretions. Trying to put her to use, Malcolm convinced her to become a honey trap for the government, or as in Jenny's words, whoring for England. She was ready for a long, sad life until Jimmy returned and they re-began their affair. Now, Jenny saw the conversation between Larkin and Malcolm on the cameras and then hunted down and found the Wolfman file in Larkin's things. Now, the file shows that Malcolm and Nikki were corrupt, taking bribes from East German government officials and criminals to allow other criminals to make the crossing. She decided to kill them all out of a sense of justice and revenge. She knew Seth was using the skull to kill sheep to create some kind of Beast of Midsomer scam, so she borrowed it. She lured Larkin away and stabbed him with a corkscrew, then used the jaws to cover up the wound. She did the same with Nikki. In the end, Malcolm is left incoherent after his near-death experience, and Barnaby enjoys watching Jones lose cricket matches from the sidelines. So let's start with the strange kill. And you don't really see this one on a lot of lists, but I have to say, corkscrew to the throat followed by being ripped up by saber-toothed tiger fangs? That's pretty strange.
Not your normal way of murdering things. Though near cremation while still alive it could be pretty awful.
Pretty awful, but I gotta say it tops that. So in the end, when Jenny is revealing what she did, she kind of acts that what she did was justified. And Barnaby said no. She's not justified. And I say, Barnaby, you're wrong.
You really do identify with Jenny on this one. I might not go to the lengths of killing people with corkscrews and saber-toothed tiger skulls, but, you know...
Traitors get executed.
I would probably make their lives miserable. I would snipe behind their backs.
Again, traitors get executed.
Yeah.
And they're traitors. They betrayed their government, and they used their government to make money. Malcolm is a massive hypocrite, like criticizing Larkin for basically making money off his government connections when that's what they did.
Yeah.
And then they basically took Jenny's life away from her.
Yeah.
Larkin was just kind of a jerk, but Nikki was Nikki, for all we've seen him as sort of this pathetic man baby, he really did some dirty stuff.
He did. When
they find Nikki's body, right, and they're doing the big search, and then she just goes inside the horse stall and just immediately finds him, like, that's not a coincidence. It was a little too fast.
Yeah, though she does a good job of pretending that it's all a surprise.
Gosh, where's Nikki? I don't know. Maybe he's here in this horse stall dead. Oh, no! And how she got the car keys?
Oh, little Harry. Yeah. Was that what his name was, Harry? The little driver?
Yeah. Harry had a good day that day. Let's talk the Frasers. So Malcolm and his weird death obsession. It almost felt like that was the guilt over what he did manifesting itself, because he keeps talking about someone is coming to get him.
Yeah, and I think it probably is. Though it is wise to pre-plan your funeral. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But yeah, maybe not to the extent that he was doing it with rehearsals and everything, but
Again, you had the great line of Barnaby going, "Wish they'd hurry up. They're going to kill him."
Yeah.
I also kind of like that he tried out his own coffin. I'm going to lay back here. Like, yeah, I guess if I have my arms like this and not at my sides, there's much roomier.
Yeah.
What did you think of his final fate?
I think he probably gets off a little easy, as I think both Barnaby and Brenda acknowledge that he's getting off a little easy.
Do you think he's faking? He's left in that sort of weird, not catatonic, but he's kind of like kind of jabbering, lost in his own brain.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, when you're in a coffin that's closed for a period of time, that's gotta really, really mess with your mind. And when you're that close to going into the furnace, that's gotta be, and that shot of him sitting up and singing, classic. That is classic.
Brilliant shot. Shot. I would say I'm wondering if he's faking, because he is a spy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we said, Nikki was a big, always sort of just alcoholic and kind of pathetic over Jenny's cheating. That scene where he calls her the village bike.
Yeah, that was brutal.
She called him pathetic.
Yeah.
He runs off very pathetically.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that. Why everyone else but me?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you love me? And it's like, I know why.
Yeah. Very, and of course this, took place, a couple decades before the succession scene between, Shiv and Tom on the balcony at the party, where they have basically the same kind of thing, but more drawn out and equally as brutal, if not more so even.
But I have to say though, is like, I think it goes to the way that Peter Davison is kind of I would actually say kind of a fearless actor in this, because a lot of actors of his, he's at this point of this episode, he has been a recognizable face for almost 3 decades. And to play not just an unlikable role, but like he is pathetic.
Yeah.
Like that scene where he flops down on the bed like a teenager, drunk.
Yeah.
Is, like a lot of actors I don't think would really, I don't want to play that. Like is of his level. Yeah.
He really embraces it. I do like the little Doctor Who shout outs. Obviously, as the Fifth Doctor, his costume was the Edwardian cricket kit. But he also wore a sprig of celery on his lapel, and you saw a little bit of celery in his Bloody Mary that one morning at breakfast. So I did kind of like that little subtle call out to his incarnation as the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah, because you don't normally put celery in a Bloody Mary.
Well, they did. They could have had him drink anything else. Mm-hmm. He could have just been getting coffee.
It was brunch, Eileen. You have a...
My mom loved her Bloody Marys.
Now, it was a great episode. There was I had a couple of issues with it, and I think kind of my biggest one was, what the heck was going on with this whole Beast of Midsomer thing? What was that?
Oh, I think it was just... It tied in with some of the other supernatural scams that have been going on in Midsomer for these many years.
What was the scam?
I don't know. He didn't seem to be making any money off of it. He was just getting some, attention. Yeah.
I mean, guy's 6'6". He gets attention walking down the street. I just didn't understand what that was a scam of. They never were really, like, I don't think they ever really had that moment of him, like, yeah, I made it all up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like they didn't have the moment, like, yeah, I used the claws to kill some sheep. I didn't, kill anybody human. Maybe there was a scene for that. Mm-hmm. They didn't include it.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of left going, like, so he killed some sheep to go on TV and talk about the Beast of Midsomer. Mm-hmm. Okay. Doesn't explain it. Doesn't explain why he threw the dead body of the sheep on the roadster.
Because it made a great shot.
Here, take a dead sheep.
Yeah. And it really pissed off little Glenn Jarvis for the first time.
And I kind of love that he was taking photos with his little tiny camera. His teeny tiny camera in his monster hands. But got amazing quality shots.
Yeah, when they were blown up on the desktop computer screen, it was like, wow, that's a lot of detail for that little tiny camera. The raw footage must be great on that.
My flip phone never took photos of it.
Yeah.
I kind of liked, this is just a weird, funny thing. I liked that the website they used for Brenda to tell Wells that he could talk to Barnaby was securesite.org.
It probably is something like that.
It just felt like one of those names. It's just like, when you watch like a TV show and they obviously have not secured, they don't want to pay Facebook the rights for their name or whatever.
Yeah.
So they have to come up with something, it's like head volume.
Yeah, I can't remember what they did with on Simpsons. It was their Facebook, but
I was just like, why did they just go MI6 classified?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the music choice during the montage, right? They had some other, like, they also had like peculiar, like non-Midsomer musical choices. The tractor chase had like kind of a bouncy, jaunty tune.
Yeah.
And the hunt for Malcolm, when they're driving around, look, the music for there is comical. Mm-hmm. I just don't normally notice the music in Midsomer, and I thought that was interesting that they kind of played with that.
Yeah. I actually, bringing up the tractor chase, I kind of loved the tractor chase because it was so slow. Mm-hmm. And
Jones catches up to him at a mild jog.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, Barnaby just sends him, like, you go get him, Jones. I'm not even going to break a sweat on this one.
Speaking of Jones, let's jump into the detective work. A lot of Jones in this episode, a lot of Jones business. Mm-hmm. Number one, we mentioned it before, Jones and the bits with the museum lady, where she really wanted seconds of Jones.
Yeah, that was, yeah. That was something. I don't think I could get away. Well, I mean, I work at home, so I can get away with that. But most places of work, you wouldn't be able to get away with propositioning people loudly on the museum floor.
I know, lady, take it down a notch, or at least buy him a cup of coffee and do this.
He seemed up for it if she hadn't been a suspect.
Of course, of course he was. They were good. Look, that date was going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
it's just,
definitely.
It's just like, I'm working.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're a suspect.
Have you met my boss?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that I like that when he interrogates Jarvis, right, who first refuses to answer his questions, he basically just negs him into, you're an MI6 office boy of no particular importance.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's actually what Barnaby told him, but if it wasn't, that was great improv on his part.
It was smart. It was very smart, manipulative. But then he tries to physically intimidate Seth, who's at least 8 inches taller.
Yeah.
Dude, he could blow you over. What are you doing? His 2 most important clue findings was he smelled sheep. As he said in the episode, he smelled sheep shit on the bag.
Yeah, and I really, really hope he threw away that tie afterwards.
And then I think kind of the most relevant thing, which I do feel was a little too convenient, is he all of a sudden remembered that on the day he got hit in the head, he saw Jenny drawing a signal on Wells' car.
Yeah.
Which just smacked of just a convenient, oh yeah, here's a thing you never saw. So much Stevens in this episode. First we see her, she is incredibly anxious over her application to be a DI, talking to Barnaby about it, who at first is like, I know nothing. And then teases her with when she finally gets the letter that says she is going to be a DI. But the joy that she shows when she got it, I thought it was, but I do think it's like, I noticed something in this that showed that I think there was a real inconsistency to how the writers wrote Stevens. That scene, that all that stuff about her clothes, right? Jones, is this what they mean? What a kind of, I don't know what I should be wearing. And I was like, that seemed really, I'm just a little too much. I'm just a girl.
She may be the first female detective in that whole office.
Quite possibly.
I kind of got that feeling, which is pretty sad for 2009.
Yeah. But it's just sometimes they write her as she's very saucy.
Yeah.
Like the episode Talking to the Dead, where she's just straight up with Jones, I know what I want.
Yeah.
I'll go get it.
Yeah, she's a little too girly in this one.
Yeah, it's just, there's no consistency. It's not, it's like, well, we need her to be this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can kind of see why, if they didn't sort of build her consistently, I can kind of see why she didn't stick around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved it when they're watching the sex video. And she's like, well, it's clearly someone Jenny knows well, because they don't do that on a first date. I want to know what that is.
Rule 69. You don't bring up Rule 69 unless you mean to bring up Rule 69.
I was like, well, it seemed to be what she did to the guy in the car, right? And you had some fun moments between her and Jones as they're trying to compete to help Barnaby, to be who's going to be head boy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Corner. How did you think? How did you feel about how Barnaby treated Bullock in this episode?
This is the Barnaby is a bully episode, and he kind of bullies Bullock.
Yeah. Bullock is just trying to keep an open mind of what could possibly cause these wounds, because he's a scientist. He has no idea what's causing it.
Yeah.
And Barnaby's just there's no beast. And then he gets the museum worker to say that the saber-toothed skull was not a natural Midsomer animal in front of Bullock, to Bullock, just to rub it in.
Yeah. He's always been the skeptic when we've had these episodes, whether it's crop circles or whatever. He just he usually tones it down a little bit more.
He was just so angry in this episode.
Yeah.
Home life. And I think that anger would probably indicate why Joyce doesn't want him around the house when he retires.
Yeah. It looks like they haven't talked about retirement, at least lately, which is, and he does retire after the next season. So apparently maybe this spurs those discussions so that she's ready for it. But she was not ready for him to announce his retirement.
Oh my God, the way she almost runs out of the room when he mentions, like, we could take cruises.
I'm going to be stuck on a boat with you? Oh my God.
You are way too controlling for that. You would try to captain that thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, he's so controlling and yet just won't tell her that she's a terrible cook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that scene where Tom says, I used to be a spook.
Yeah.
And she clearly didn't believe him.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, it was only for a few months. He's enough for him to sign the whatever document they had him sign, which
Exact.
Yeah. But apparently it was obvious that he wasn't cut out for it, that he didn't want to do it, and he wanted to be, something else, so they parted ways.
But I just thought it was funny. It's like he's telling her that story before we find out that it's true in such this weird, grandiose way. It's like, he's full of it.
Yeah.
She gets a great moment when Barnaby's all frustrated with his investigation. He's like, think laterally. She's like, well, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know. You tell me that all the time.
Yeah, it kind of puts those expressions that have no meaning into their place as the meaningless drivel that they really are.
Yeah. And I think she's got the line of the episode when Barnaby finds out that Nikki is dead and he's going back on, and she's like, thank God for small murders. Finally getting Tom out of my hair.
Yeah. And there are a lot of great lines in this episode. Is that a coffin is great. The tickety boo. It's all, there's just so much great stuff here.
Well, that should bring us to like the final thoughts. Great lines, great acting, great story. This is a top episode.
Yeah, I really do like this one a lot. I think it's very memorable. I think it works. The clues are there. So there's nothing that comes out of left field as kind of wait, I didn't expect that. When it's revealed that she's other than Jones saying it had to be Jarvis it had to be Jarvis because he's the only one left. He's totally overlooking Jenny. And it's like, well, Jenny is the most logical person at this point. She's the one with the pent-up anger.
Yeah. When you get that full backstory, and her story is so tragic. And it really gives it, again, this whole episode does a really good job of finding that balance between humor and murder and drama. And, her character is kind of this weird sort of femme fatale, sleeping around a little bit. And then you find out, no, she's actually this woman who just loved this guy and was betrayed by the people that she thought had her back. And they just made her into someone that she never wanted to be.
Yeah.
And then to find out that they did it all for money.
Yeah.
It was such a well done ending. But all, it just added that perfect little balance to the end.
Yeah.
I did not remember this episode very well, rewatching this episode. And I was like, watching it again, I was like, this is so good. This is just a top episode that I don't think as many people, because it's not as outrightly weird as a lot of other Midsomer things, that I don't think people talk about this one as being one of the great ones. And I think they should. Yeah,
I agree. Alice Krige is great in this. Anna Massey is great in this. Peter Davison is great in this. From top to bottom, the cast is terrific. It works well. The writing is sharp. It puts in the humor right when you need it. And when it resolves everything, you are heartbroken. And that's a great way to end a Midsomer episode.
100% agree. Well, that's everything we wanted to talk about. If you have anything you want to discuss about Secrets and Spies or Midsomer murders in general, please feel free to email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com. If you want us to use the email in the show, we get some every once in a while. They're really sweet. Thank you so much for doing that. But we can't really read them on the air unless you say this is okay for air. So if you want us to read it in on air, we'd love to read these on the air. We're also Welcome to Midsomer on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and we are Welcome to Midsomer on YouTube as well. We have our own channel where we have been uploading our old episodes. Please follow us in all these places. Now, if you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to us or rating and reviewing us on iTunes or Spotify. They really do help people find new podcasts and find us. So if you've been enjoying this, please help us out, spread the word. Tell all your friends about us. We're going to be back soon with another episode, and we hope you will join us again. As we take the road out of Midsomer, we want to thank you for listening. That remind you in Midsomer, secrets can be murder.
And usually are.
Welcome to Midsomer is produced by Eric Buscher and Eileen Becker. All clips in this podcast are used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act fair use exception for criticism and commentary. Our logo and podcast art was designed by Smeedrai. Our theme music by The Infamous.
Let's get our meaty. Let's get our
Let's get our meaty.
Yeah, shut up.